Hey there, this is the Garbage Man here with my first AV review. If you like what you hear, please visit us at findingfreeman.com, the site dedicated to finding a man that doesn't want to be found. Today I'll be reviewing my favorite Japimation flick of all time.
Feast of the North Star.
When I was a kid, watching Japimation for the first time was nothing short of mind-blowing. Seeing all that blood, death, and titties, hearing cartoons use swear words, following weird plot lines, listening to even stranger dialogue, watching this shit made me feel like I was getting away with murder. Doubt kids feel the same way today, though. Anime's everywhere these days. It's on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, it has its own aisle at the video store, its own category on Netflix, and it's about as hard to find on the internet as an empty bottle of booze in my trash can. When I think about titles like Google 13, Fist of the North Star, Riki-Oh, and Akira, I honestly think about what a pain in the ass it was to find those fuckers, or how I'd rent just so many goddamn bad Japimation flicks just to find one that I actually liked. In the 1980s, anime had an almost exclusive market on sex and violence in the realm of animation. Of course, some asshole always likes to argue that the Japanese were only mimicking a trend that became popular in animation starting in the 1970s, citing guys like Ralph Bakshi and titles like American Pop or Heavy Metal. Or they'd bring up that guy that made Fritz the Cat and talk about how he had done a similar product even before Bakshi. You know, that's a great argument and all, but hell, while you're on the subject, how about bringing up UK's Martin Rosen releasing a very adult-themed cartoon called Watership Down back in the 70s, or in the 80s whenever he released Plague Dogs. But that's not even what I'm talking about here. What I'm saying is whenever I compare Western adult animation to Japimation, it's almost like the Western films were trying to be extreme, where Japimation just was extreme. But enough about what the genre means to me, because we're going to watch some Japanese animation, or Japimation as I like to call it, because I'm an asshole like that.
It's garbage day, it's garbage day. What's so great about garbage day? Garbage trucks come out and play. That's what's great about garbage day. It's garbage day, it's garbage day. What's so great about garbage day? Throw your stinky stuff away. That's what's great about garbage day.
I was about 11 years old in the summer of '89. The place was Texas, which meant it was fucking hot. That naturally meant it was time to start bugging my mom to shell out the dough so I could rent a fucking video game. I found this pinch of monkey shit at my local video zone. Even by 1989 standards, this game was about as worthwhile as firing green dick snot out of your fucking piss hole. You just kept walking to the right and punching people in the fucking head. When you did this, their heads would start blinking like mad, pop off, and then fly off the screen. Other than that little bit of 8-bit gore, it was pretty damn forgettable. The next summer, my brother started banging this chick that worked at Primetime Video. Primetime was this little ma and pop video store where its video zone was a chain. That meant Primetime couldn't afford to carry the same degree of new and popular releases as their competitor Video Zone. So to compensate, a lot of their selections were of the independent and more obscure variety.
Garbage Day!
I can remember that my parents didn't have a membership there because Primetime had a back room which housed their adults-only section. Needless to say, my brother being able to rent from Primetime Video became somewhat of a novelty for me. One of the first videos I rented from there was this, and all I can say is, Nintendo, you fucked it up, man. The story opens with all these serene images. Shit like rolling hills, lush greenery, rushing water. There's like this light elevator music in the background to give the imagery some more tranquility as the opening credits roll. Suddenly, everything's vaporized by nuclear fire as we see flesh melted away from the bones of the innocent. Yeah, the movie's chock full of all sorts of corny, over-the-top, cliche, peace versus annihilation bullshit, but what else would you expect from any movie that came from this time period, especially if it's about, post-apocalyptic Earth? In this future, there's apparently a guy that's the North Star and a guy who's the Southern Cross. Judging by the way this movie goes, I guess that means that if you're one of these guys, then you must have like magical powers or some shit, because the shit these guys do is pretty fucking crazy that completely defies logic. Ken is the Fist of the North Star. He's banging this chick named Julia. Julia has no nipples, and in the future that must make her pretty fucking hot, because Shin, who's the Fist of the Southern Cross, as well as Ken's best friend.
I'm so happy I have you as my best friend, and I love Lisa so much.
Shut the fuck up, Tommy! Anyway, Shin wants Julia for himself. I wonder if nippleless titty fetish is due to the radiation. Maybe titties in the future shoot like poison titty milk, or maybe like concentrated titty acid like in Aliens. I personally like nipples, but if that was the case, I guess I would pretty much like nippleless titty too. I mean, why not? Anyway, so Shin challenges Ken to a duel, despite the fact that the Fists of the North and the Southern Cross should never fight. Well, they do, and the result is Shin beating Ken's ass like a cross-eyed, red-headed stepson who just ate the last Triscuit cracker. After he beats up Ken, he threatens Julia that if she doesn't swear her love to him, Ken will die. Well, she says no, so he drives his pointer finger into Ken's chest. I guess that's one way to romance a bitch. Hey baby, do you like the way I stick my fingers inside your boyfriend? Well, despite his romantic gesture, Julia still won't agree to love him, so he drives all 4 fingers into Ken's stomach. Long story short, the asshole gets the girl, then Shin and Julia leave Ken to die. So, Ken has these 2 brothers, Jaggy and Raoul, and they're just sort of hanging out, off in the distance, watching while Ken gets fingered by his best friend. After Ken's ass beating, Raoul decides that since how Ken is such a shitty fighter and fucking dead and all, that he must be the new Fist of the North Star. So he tells Jaggy he's off to go see Ryukin, who's like the 3 brothers' martial arts teacher or some shit. Jaggy, who we later learn has a sordid past with Ken, decides to pick up the bleeding and near unconscious brother and throw him off a fucking cliff. So now some time has passed since Ken's defeat. Roaming bands of Mad Max-like thugs rape, pillage, and cornhole pretty much whomever they please. One of the roaming gangs of thugs starts picking on these 2 little kids. The littlest of the 2 ends up being pinned down underneath this giant's boot. Well, I guess she has that ESP stuff because she telepathically calls Ken to the rescue. Ken resurrects from the earth, dirt, and dog shit, and has apparently grown a beard. Oh, and I guess I should mention he's a complete fucking badass now. One of the thugs tries to shoot him in the chest with a crossbow, but he doesn't give a shit. He's all like, fuck you and your crossbow, dude. I'll punch your fucking face. Then he just goes to clubbing motherfuckers. Each time he punches one of these assholes, their head just fucking starts throbbing like they were Melvin Junko, transforming into the Toxic Avenger, and then they fucking explode into a rainbow of blood, skull fragments, spit, snot, ass, and fucking brain tissue. Come to think of it, that must have been why their heads popped off in the video game. Yeah. Now I get it. So, Ken keeps blowing up motherfuckers' heads like it's going out of style, which makes watching this movie sort of like a cross between a Bruce Lee flick and Scanners. They try to introduce some story at this point, but if people's heads aren't exploding, I kind of just tune out, to be honest with you. That is, until we're introduced to Ray. Ray looks a lot like Shin if Shin had white hair instead of blonde. That brings me to an important issue. This is a Japanese movie. Everyone has pretty Japanese sounding names, so why does everyone look so goddamn Caucasian? As a kid, Ray was my favorite character by far. I remember the way he was introduced in the movie always bothered me though. Well, it didn't bother me the first time I watched it, but it bothered me the second and thereafter. After I saw this as a kid, I decided I'd hit pay dirt in finding it, so I gleefully showed it to my big brother, hoping to impress him. The first scene where Ray came on, I enthusiastically told my brother about how badass this guy was. Well, my brother took one look at Ray with his pink cloak and his little dainty fingers, and then he looked back at me with an expression of, total disappointment and said, I can see why you like him, Patrick. He looks like a thagula. Leave it to my brother to call both me and my favorite character a homosexual in one statement. Critical assessments aside, Ray kicks ass, and for the record, I'm pretty sure he likes the pussy. So, this guy Ray is looking for the man who calls himself Fist of the North Star, because apparently this asshole named Ken kidnapped and enslaved Ray's sister. So, he confronts some of Ken's henchmen, who pretty much look like every other bad guy in this movie, and he asks them where he can find this guy Ken. Of course, looking at Ray with his pink cloak and his little girly fingers, they figure him a fagula, so they try to kick his ass. Well, what they didn't count on was Ray having magical jujitsu kung fu ninja powers. Ray moves his hand with such laser-like precision you can literally see geometry in motion. I suppose these movements are so precise, the air in between these somatic gestures somehow cuts people to ribbons. His movements are like laser beams from a fucking ray gun. Oh, I get it. His name's Ray, that's ironic. After Ray slices and dices the shit out of a bunch of bad guys using his laser ninjutsu, the real Ken shows up and tells Ray that the man he's looking for is not the Fist of the North Star. He's a pretender. In fact, it's Ken's own brother Jaggy. After Jaggy threw Ken off the cliff, he assumed Ken's identity and started wearing this football helmet to hide the horrible deformity he acquired from Ken before this whole business of kidnapped girlfriends and being thrown off cliffs and shit. Apparently, when the two had fought before, Ken did that million punch head explodey thingy to Jaggy. Only I guess back then, Ken couldn't do it to the point of lethality. However, Jaggy's head still pulsates like it could blow up at any moment, and whenever he takes off his helmet, you can see the steel brace that's screwed into Jaggy's skull, so I guess that's to keep his head from blowing apart. Anyway, Ray and Ken make it a point to team up and find the man who calls himself Fist of the North Star. It doesn't take them long before they find his stronghold, which is guarded by this big fat giant. Ken takes a little time in making that guy explode just like everyone else he touches. After they are inside the stronghold, the two confront Jaggy, who does indeed have Ray's sister enslaved. Jaggy tries to outsmart our two heroes, but Ken is way more clever than he is, and he manages to bait Jaggy into a fight. As you might imagine, it doesn't take him long, or much effort for that matter, to wipe his ass with Jaggy, so Jaggy's dead. Meanwhile, Ken's other brother, Raoul, has built this huge army and taken a new title for himself, Raoul the Conqueror. We catch up with him on the front lines of what looks like it will be an epic battle. The opposing army, led by James Avery, has soldiers that all look like feral barbarians. Raoul's soldiers, on the other hand, all look like steel-plated ninjas. As I said, this battle looks like it's going to be epic, but that doesn't mean that these two warriors are evenly matched. The ninjas are slaughtering the barbarians like the turn of the century slaughtered good music. So, seeing his army being ass-raped, James Avery says, "I'll turn my body to steel!" And surely enough, he suddenly made of steel and 20 feet tall. He then commences to stepping on ninjas, biting ninjas in half, shoving ninjas up his ass, farting ninjas out his asshole at high speeds into exploding boulders and shit. It's fucking nuts. Finally, Raoul's had enough of mean old Uncle Phil killing all his metal ninja guys, so he destroys the barbarian warlord with his ki, or his chi. You know that Asian thing where you use your inner force? Regardless, Uncle Phil explodes like a tanker filled with nitroglycerin driven into a forest fire. Shortly after that, Raoul begins marching on Shin's kingdom, and Julia uses this distraction as her chance to escape. Plus, she's overheard Shin is talking about how Ken is still alive, so I guess she longs to be reunited with her lost love. Regardless, she gets the hell away from that Shin guy. Of course, she doesn't get far before Raoul finds her and kidnaps her. Raoul burns through Shin's army the same way someone with a spastic colon burns through a thrift store roll of cheap-ass toilet paper. He then confronts Shin and brags that he has his woman. Raoul could easily kill Shin, but for some reason he leaves him alive. He then takes Julia to his stronghold. Ken and Ray part ways at this point, so Ken can rescue Julia and get him some more of that nippless lovin' everyone's so crazy about. When he arrives at Shin's castle, he finds no nippless titties, though. Only a castle ablaze and no one in between him and his old pal Shin. Once again, Ken vanquishes his enemy with pretty much no trouble at all because he's such a badass, but not before learning where Julia is. Ray and the two children from earlier in the movie have already found Julia. She's being kept in a dungeon in Raoul's stronghold in order to bait Ken into a fight. The little girl with ESP gives Julia a flower she grew, and then the kids split. One of Raoul's men sees the flower and tells Raoul about it. Raoul gets so super pissed at seeing a flower, he fucking crucifies Julia. That's an overreaction. Though, he doesn't do it in a biblical way. Instead, he just ties her to a cross, so I guess it's like a pussified version of crucifixion. Anyway, he calls an assembly of all the townspeople and threatens that if whoever brought her this flower doesn't come forward, he'll kill this girl. Well, Ray steps forward and he's all like, "Hell yeah, Raoul, I did it, and I did your mama too. Now suck it, bitch." What precedes is a time-honored, gratuitous 80s fight montage.
います Hey, let's go 金化する大切なもの Protect my vows どこが悪い So let's fighting Let's fighting love Let's fighting love この歌ちょっとバカわけがわかる
Ken shows up right after Ray gets impaled on Raoul's finger, and he holds Ray as he dies in his arms. Ray is not a fagula! Anyway, he gets so pissed that he has no choice but to... the two engage in the most epic battle in the history of the universe, in which an entire city is destroyed, as well as several hundred gallons of blood shed from one another. Raoul is victorious. Just before Raoul delivers the death blow to Ken, the little girl who grew that flower that pissed off Raoul in the first place pleads for Ken's life. Suddenly, Raoul has a change of heart. You know, the end of this movie is so corny, I'm not even going to finish this review. I'll let my little girl do it instead. I'm going to go get a pint of whiskey. Fuck this shit, man. I'm out of here.
He remembers the words of his master, Ru-Ken. Power without perception is nothing, so he leaves Ken alive so he can look after this little girl, who will one day bring peace to the land and make things grow again.
Wait a second, that's a huge character development coming from a one-dimensional villain like that. You mean to tell me the same guy that's been murdering, raping, killing countless innocent...
It's garbage day, it's garbage day. What's so great about garbage day? Garbage trucks come out and play. That's what's great about garbage day. It's garbage day, it's garbage day. What's so great about garbage day? Throw your stinky stuff away. That's what's great about garbage day.